Alright, this is lesson 8.2b as in boy in trigonometry, still doing trigonometric polar form of complex numbers. And if you remember in the first video, we came up with this formula here, and this is the trigonometric form of this here, which is the complex number or the rectangular form. So, in other words, this and this are the same. This is the trig form, this is the rectangular form. So what we're going to learn, so remember when we were graphing, we'd go over x, up y on the imaginary or the complex xy axis. So this was the I-axis, now that we're talking imaginary, and this is the real number axis. So we'd come over x and up whatever number that was. And so that's the rectangular, and now this is called the trigonometric form or the polar form, and we'll get into more polar form stuff later and how to graph that, because we're dealing with circles and stuff when we get into the polar form. So all we're doing right now in this video is changing from this form to this form and back. So back and forth, back and forth. Alright, so let's get rid of some stuff and get started here. So example 2 says, before we go any further, I need to highlight something. This here, there is an abbreviated way of writing that, so you don't have to write the whole thing. And the abbreviated form is R C cosine I S theta. So we call that cis theta. So that is just a shortened way of writing this right here. I'll circle it in blue. So we don't have to write cosine theta plus I sine of theta. They write it like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and do one. Express 2 cosine of 300 degrees plus I sine of 300 degrees in rectangular form. Alright, one of the things I want you to notice before we go anywhere, theta, theta. 300, 300. So this angle and this angle have to be the same. So another way of writing that would be 2 cis 300 degrees. I mean, if you wanted to write it in that abbreviated form, that's what it would look like, and it means that there. Okay, so let's get rid of that right now and worry more about how to convert this to rectangular than how to do a shortcut. Alright, so from chapter 2 you learned that cosine of 300 degrees is fourth quadrant right there. This is a 60-degree angle. So what is the cosine of a 60-degree angle? And the fourth quadrant is 1/2. So that's the cosine of 300 degrees. And then we have the I. And what is the sine of 300 degrees? The sine of this angle in the fourth quadrant, all students take calculus, so that's why this was positive, is because C, cosine, is positive, but sine, all students take calculus. Cosine is positive here, but not sine. So sine of a 60-degree angle is the square root of 3/2, but it's negative because it's in that fourth quadrant. So we can write this as 2 times 1/2, and that minus there, we'll just make that right there, I square root of 3/2. Alright, so all we did is plug the numbers in. Now what we're going to do is simplify that. So let's move that up a little bit. Can I move anything up? Yeah, I can move some of this up out of the way. Move that up. Okay, so this is all that we're concerned about, is this part right here, once we plugged in those numbers. Alright, so 2 times 1/2 is 1. 2 times this is 2I square root of 3/2. These cancel, so we have 1 minus I square root of 3. That is our answer. We just changed it to A plus BI form, or X plus YI I form. So if we wanted to graph it, it would be over 1 down square root of 3. And it would be that point right there. Alright? If we wanted to graph it. Doesn't say that we want to graph it, but that's where it would be. And again, that's that 300-degree angle that we've got there. Okay, so let's look at converting between trig and polar forms. Let's go from rectangular to trig form. Bottom of page 342 gives you the steps, and I'll put those on here. And that will be in the next video.